All right, everybody, welcome back. Once again, we're merging the timelines. We're merging the timelines because we're merging the timelines. I know in my previous episodes, I've talked about how Before Crisis is related to our series through Broden and the Calm Destruction. I've talked about how Crisis Core is related to our series since Cisne is not an OG, but she's in our series. And I've also talked about how Dirge of Cerberus is related to our series because we get the reveal of the proto-material in the Easter egg comments from Yuffie and Barrett in one of my previous episodes. If you haven't checked those out, make sure you check them out as soon as possible. But today we're talking about something that might have seemed super duper obvious, and that's Evercrisis being part of merging the timelines into our series. Let's do it. All right, so let's start this video off with a little bit of house cleaning, because I know I've seen the comments, I read all the comments, I try to reply to as many of them as I can, but a lot of people are getting caught up on me using the word timelines. A lot of people are getting caught up on me using the word worlds, or they want me to use them interchangeably or use them differently. A lot of people want to talk about string theory, which actually is a flawed theory, but we don't got to get into that right now, and want to discuss Omni-Aerith versus Omni-Sephiroth. And look, I'm open to talking about anything and everything on this channel, even willing to touch subjects that nobody wants to touch because they're worried about the politically correct Final Fantasy VII truthers coming after them. I'm not worried about that because I understand the game, I understand storytelling, and I know exactly which direction they're heading in. At least I think I do, or at least I can rationalize it, reason it, and hopefully provide you guys with a little bit of information that seems relatively consistent logically. And if not, I hope you guys will correct anything you think I've misunderstood, as always, and as you have been since day one. Some of these other kind of theories and ideas I don't personally think hold much weight. That's why I don't really cover them. But if it's something that you think is very important and you want to make a couple recommendations and the video gets a bunch of likes, I have zero problem doing a video on maybe something that the subscribers want me to take a look at. And by the way, Ryu, I saw your comment. I know you've been here for a while, about a year and a half, or maybe since one of my first videos. So I did actually start making a video for you discussing Zack and Cloud's memories and how people got them confused. But if you look here, I'll try to clip it somewhere in here. My screen capture started not to work on the second part of the video, so I have to re-record the whole second part, which is really going to be one part, but it's going to be long. It's going to be very intricate pieces of detailed information, as I always try to kind of do. So I hope you like it. Make sure you subscribe to get the notifications for that video when that one comes out. And everything I kind of do, I try to present it in a certain way. And the thing is that the ideas that I present are multi-layered. So it can't just be done in one extremely long video because I know people's retention and they get bored and whatever, and YouTube and algorithm, and it's a lot harder on my computer to make a 3-hour video than to make a couple different 30-minute videos. So I'm gonna try to specialize in a little bit shorter content so you guys can get as much information in a short amount of time so you can move on with your day and not have to think about all the questions you had about Final Fantasy VII because I have resolved all of them, okay? But moving forward, I wanna talk about what's happening with the next couple episodes. There's so much content. There's gonna be a look back. I still have to do the Final Fantasy VII OG consciousness series or consciousness, Tifa's interpretation, because I know I talked about Don't Trust the Ultimania video about Final Fantasy VII OG and Tifa and Cloud's relationship. And then I said I was gonna add a separate video. That video's still in the works. Same thing, new to this, all this stuff. OBS mic wasn't working, but I'm done with the excuses. I'll get it done, I'll get it out. Keep your eye out for that video. But what I really want to focus on is once I start this kind of topic, there's going to be like 5 other videos that need to be developed to complete the whole entire idea. So don't rage cook off the videos and be like so upset that, oh, you only talked about this, you only talked about that, because I'm going to be going into, in this video, merging the timelines, like I said, of Evercrisis. And to develop the Evercrisis idea, I have to develop Glenn, Matt, Lucia. I have to develop Viceroy Sarruf. I have to develop President Shinra. And I have to develop Avalanche A, B, and C, and go into some older Before Crisis stuff. And I think you'll appreciate the work that I'm going to be putting into the next couple of videos, because I don't think Viceroy Sarruf is Rufus Shinra. And I have a variety of different reasons why, but the main reason why is kind of already shown to us. And I typically, my view on the game is you have to trust what they're showing to us. Just look at what they're showing to us in the game. The game is the ultimate canon, and then after, go with that. So it could be FF7R series, and then we can start including the other games, then we can start including the other books, then we can start including the other Ultimanias. But the game that we're being shown is the ultimate canon. And I think a great part of what they're doing in the Final Fantasy VII-R series is they're providing us a lot of kind of like shell game a little bit, where they're showing us a little bit, you have to interpret it a certain way, it could be something else. And I think that's kind of what they're doing with the whole idea of Viceroy Sarruf. Spoiler warning. This is a spoiler warning. This is a spoiler warning. Hello there. This is a spoiler warning. Turn off now or forever hold your peace. I'm not sold, like I said, that it's going to be Rufus Shinra, who's going to be this Avalanche trader, leader. Spoiler alert, should have said it. I'll have to make sure I drop a spoiler right before I talk about this in the edit. But I think they've already revealed through us, through Jesse, through Wedge, through Cloud, and also through Yuffie, the direction they're going in for who's going to be the insider at Shinra. And I do not think it's going to be Rufus Shinra. This person that they're developing could have all the necessary funds that Rufus Shinra was previously sending out to the Avalanche group initially. And I think there's too many power dynamics going on in Wutai right now to be able to just assert that it's going to be Rufus Shinra as the Avalanche kind of Shinra trader. And yes, I know Rufus Shinra wants to unseat his father as a leader of the Shinra Corporation, but I don't think it's going to be happening the same way because how they're changing some of the dynamics. So let's jump into today's video about merging the timelines and how Evercrisis is merging into Final Fantasy VII R series. So y'all remember Matt, Lucia, and Glenn, right? If not, let me show you where Sephiroth, the hero, saves them from imminent death. Now, why is this important? We need to understand that Matt, Lucia, and Glenn have completely different roles in this game. This is not OG because those three people are not an OG, or one may or may not be, which I alluded to being Glenn in one of the older games as a Black Robe Man in Junon when I did the review of the trailer for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth release. That's just like where I'm at right now. I don't think Sephiroth is the big bad. I think that they tricked us because in OG FF7, they tell us when Heidegger's with Rufus in Junon, they tell us, oh, the black caped guy is here. And we're assuming it's Sephiroth throughout the entirety of even FF7 OG. But what we know now is the black hooded person is this new character. The chin strap and like a mustache. A mustache, everybody wants a mustache. If you don't know where what movie that's from. So Matt, Lucia, and Glenn have a major implication in the game now because Matt, Lucia, and Glenn are the first people, the first group of Shinra soldiers that Sephiroth does his mission with the first time he gets on the actual battlefield. And in this kind of growth of Sephiroth, we see that this trio of group is the first people that accept Sephiroth for who he is. They initially start apprehensive of him. They call him a cyborg. They call him names. They say he's an outsider, but eventually love him, care about him, give him a hug, and try to help him solve the problem of finding his mother, Dr. Lucretia Crescent, which Sephiroth thinks is Genova. And this is super important and why they had to build the Evercrisis story to build Sephiroth's new direction moving forward. I know a lot of people are still apprehensive to Sephiroth having a redemption arc, but there's a reason why they're building up Sephiroth, Genova in the previous games. There's a reason why they're showing us Dr. Lucretia Crescent. There's a reason why there's a photo of her and Hojo in Mansion. There's a reason for all these things. There's also a reason why we learned that Sephiroth grew up in the Shinra Mansion. And that's another video I have to talk about, but I'm just know Professor Gast, Sephiroth, there's a reason why they're homeboys. There's a reason why Sephiroth says when he goes to the inn before the Nibelheim incident, hey, this landscape, it looks familiar. I have the answer. I have all the answers. You just have to be patient with me. So let's be patient and talk about Matt, Lucia, and Glenn. So I kind of talked about the Glenn part. Now I want to talk about how Matt and Lucia are having bigger roles in Final Fantasy VII R series. So they came from Evercrisis. We know that they were with Glenn on Rador. We know that they freaking deserted Shinra because they're like, yo, we're not down with this genocide. We're out of here. And we know that Sephiroth truly cares about them still, because when Sephiroth as an adult, when Genesis does the same thing, he leaves Shinra, he runs into Glenn, and Glenn tells him, hey, we have an insider inside Shinra who told us that Heidegger is about to bomb South Tamblin. And then after what does Sephiroth do? He says, hey man, how's Matt Lucia? Clearly showing that Sephiroth still thinks about them, still cares about him, because Sephiroth is a good person. Sephiroth tries to save people's lives. Sephiroth is a hero. Sephiroth was always good until the Nibelheim incident when Jenova manipulated him and confused his mind to think that she is his mother, because we have to remember, Sephiroth is a lost boy looking for his mother. That's the new story. That's what they've developed for us, starting from Evercrisis, moving forward. So Matt and Lucia, when we're in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, we're doing the Cosmo Canyon and the Salt Shaker side quest for Wedge, and we learn about Wedge's eventual death that actually happened, happened differently in this game versus OG. Another change of why that's not OG. But if you want to say, oh, well, Wedge still died. Wedge died and he died here and he died there. Sure, you can say that, but a potato, piece of meat, some vegetables don't always make the same recipe. So you can have same elements, but they're not creating the same recipe. The same way that we can have the same elements of how people are getting to certain locations, but they're happening differently because they're telling the story in a different manner. Okay? Understood? You got me. Next, we find out in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that when Wedge is speaking to Polk, and Polk tells him, he can see that Polk's a little nervous, so he offers him a sandwich, obviously because he's Wedge and he's a freaking gourmand, which means that he likes to eat a lot of food like me. And he's talking to Polk and he's like, hey, here's a sandwich, it'll make you feel better. And while the captains of Avalanche HQ, so this clearly shows us this is not Avalanche Splinter Cell, Barrett's group, this is Avalanche A or Avalanche B. Video to come on that as well. But we can see that this Avalanche group is saying that they're reporting directly to Matt and Lucia, which directly confirms that it's the same group that deserted from Evercrisis, which is what Yuffie tells us at the Nibelheim reactor when she's like, oh, General Lodbrok came and he brought some ex-soldiers and he's here and we're trying to reestablish Wutai, so we have a current interim government. There's a whole dynamic happening in Wutai that is completely different from the original game. There's still the resentment of Yuffie to her father that's similar to the original game. Glenn wasn't in the original game. Matt wasn't in the original game. Lucia wasn't in the original game. And the Crisis Core deserters, second and third class soldiers that we learned from Crisis Core that left when Genesis left, are also in Wutai. So Wutai has a bunch of soldiers. And then before Crisis, that essentially shows us how Fajito was able to manipulate and increase the soldier program in Wutai. Who knows if we're going to get there in this game? I don't really think so, but I think that the entire elements that are going on in Wutai right now are specifically important to how they want to develop the story moving forward. We also see Sephiroth's kind heart when in First Soldier Part 2 or Episode 2, or I'm not sure exactly what they call it, we can see that Bachman starts talking crap about Matt and Lucia and Glenn for deserting Shinra and calling them traitors, and Sephiroth doesn't jump in and say, oh, hey, actually, I let them go. Sephiroth just chills and it's like, yo, those are my homies. So I'm gonna just not mention it so then they can't catch me and put me in jail for lying. So Sephiroth is always a good guy and he shows it repeatedly, but I'm not talking about that. Just giving you small examples of why it matters, Matt, Lucia, Glenn, in today's episode. So those are the main reasons why I think Matt and Lucia are going to have bigger roles in the Final Fantasy VII R series. Cloud also makes a suggestion to Barrett and Tifa when they're about to break into the Shinra HQ that there's a lot of security here for them anticipating us to come and save Aerith. But we learned through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that there actually was, Cloud's instincts were correct, that Matt and Lucia were also planning an Avalanche HQ attack on the building at the exact same time. They went through the bottom, we went on top of the car through the highway. And who does Cloud run into once we make it in? And he reveals, actually, I'm the insider who's been shutting off all the cameras, allowing you to escape because I work for Avalanche. and that's none other than Mayor Domino. So I know he played a role in the OG. Clearly, he's playing a bigger role in this one because we get to meet the Inside Man in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and the side quest for the Wedge. We learned that Wedge was there with the other Avalanche HQ members before they're moving up, before the helicopter gets shot down, before we fight President Shinra. All that stuff. We learned that. So it's now revealed to us very clearly that Mayor Domino is the inside man. And this is why I don't think they need to have this undertone of Rufus being jealous of his dad and Rufus having to fund Avalanche and Wutai to overthrow President Shinra. Because if Mayor Domino is already providing security cards for Jessie, clearance cards to Yuffie and her group in the DLC, to Jige, and doing all that stuff, we don't really need Rufus to be the one orchestrating that when it's already being orchestrated by somebody else. So that's one of my main kind of conflicts I have with Rufus being Viceroy Sarruf. Because it seems like with all the power-hungry trifecta of people that are currently in Wutai, not that it doesn't make sense, it could be Rufus, but it seems more consistent that they're trying to build up somebody that we don't know who's now going to be in direct confrontation with Shinra. Because Mayor Domino even plays dumb at the start of Rebirth. If you watch the propaganda news, the Shinra propaganda news, mainstream media Shinra news, you can see that he even comments about the storm that came and attacked the building and all this stuff, when he definitely knows that it was not Wutai that sent this weapon of mass destruction, tornado, DEW attack on Midgar, unless they did. We still don't know. Could it be that? Could it be something else? Still things we have to figure out, hopefully in the next part of the game. So these are some of the reasons why I think Matt, Lucia, and Glenn will have greater roles, how we merge Evercrisis back into Final Fantasy VII R series, and how I think Mayor Domino is actually the inside man and not Rufus. But I'm going to go into greater detail about that when I have my Rufus video that comes out. What do you think? Do you think Rufus Shinra is an anagram for Sarruf in the Japanese, and he's really the secret guy who's doing all these things? Then what's the point of having Mayor Domino giving the ID cards to let Avalanche break in when Rufus could have coordinated it? Or do you think Rufus has coordinated Domino, just like how I think Genova is controlling Sephiroth and there's always a higher puppet master? Let me know what you think. Let's argue about it in the comments, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.